When watching any football match, everyone's eyes are drawn to the striker or the winger, that player who is capable in a single moment of scoring a goal that gives his team the win. This is what usually captures our attention. As for the coaches, their focus is on another player, the axis around which the entire team revolves. We can call him the lungs of the team because when he is at his best, the match runs smoothly and everyone gives their best. But if he is not at his best, the chances of winning shrink significantly, and sometimes defeat is the inevitable result. For this reason, Pep Guardiola said that he can accept poor performance from any player on the field except for the defensive midfielder, because he is the only one who is not allowed to make mistakes. In this video, I will rank the top 10 defensive midfielders in history, but before we start, write in the comments your list of the top 10 defensive midfielders from your perspective. Now let's begin with the player in 10th place. In the 2015 to 2016 season, after Benitez was sacked and dismissed in a dishonorable manner, the legend Zinedine Zidane took over as Real Madrid's coach. And as you know, with Zidane's arrival, the trophies started flowing, and an era of dominance in the Champions League began, one that remains unclosed to this day. And although the world gives full credit to Zidane for creating this brilliant formula that secured a historic Champions League three-peat, this system would not have succeeded without the discovery Zidane revealed to the world. He took this player from Real Madrid's bench and turned him into the best defensive midfielder in the world at that time. He is the Brazilian Carlos Casemiro, the player who was completely marginalized under Benitez before Zidane came and changed his career entirely from failure to legendary status. As a result of this transformation, Casemiro spent many glorious years with Real Madrid, winning 5 Champions League titles, and he succeeded in winning all possible titles with the Royal Club, as he was crowned with 3 La Liga titles, 3 UEFA Super Cup titles, in addition to 3 FIFA Club World Cup titles. He also won the Copa del Rey once and achieved the Spanish Super Cup 3 times. Moreover, he was one of the heroes of the Brazil national team that won the Copa America title in 2019. I know very well that many may not agree with me about this player, as Casemiro is surrounded by great controversy, especially due to his aggressive style of play. Some believe that he has no connection to football, while others consider him the best in his position in history. And despite being part of a midfield trio that many consider the best in history, alongside Luka Modric and Toni Kroos, the only flaw in Casemiro's performance, in my opinion, is his poor decision-making on the ball, which at times proves to be a fatal weakness. This became even more evident during his time with Manchester United, where it happened more than once. Meanwhile, at Real Madrid, we can say that Ancelotti was mitigating some of Casemiro's flaws, as he would sometimes ask Kroos or Modric to drop into the defensive midfield position and receive the ball from the defense, sparing Casemiro from this task that exposes his weaknesses. But honestly, I place him in 10th place and consider him among the best in history, due to his great defensive ability and his constant and strong presence in big matches. He is always on time, and with all his aggressiveness, he defends his teammates. And although Casemiro has started to experience some decline in his level, and his stock has begun to fall, and we might soon see him out of the Premier League, we can never deny what he has offered. This is the way of life, and we can never undermine his value. As for the one in 9th place, in 1995, Ajax Amsterdam was at the peak of its brilliance, as it managed to qualify for the Champions League final and won the title after defeating Milan. The credit for this goes to the brilliant Dutch coach, Louis van Gaal, who at that time formed a team of young players, many of whom came from a Dutch colony called the country of Suriname. And from this country, specifically from the city of Paramaribo, was born the one in 9th place, who was given the nickname the Pitbull at that time, in comparison to the dog breed known for its strength, toughness, and refusal to let go of its prey until it is finished. He is the Dutchman with the strange glasses and long hair, Edgar Davids. Edgar Davids, whom I consider one of the most underrated midfielders in history, despite having an exceptional career in every sense of the word. When he was young, his father migrated from Suriname to Amsterdam and enrolled him in Ajax's academy, from which he rose to the first team in 1991. During 5 years with the Amsterdam Giant, he achieved everything on both the domestic and continental levels. He won 3 consecutive Eredivisie titles with Ajax's golden generation, in addition to claiming the UEFA Cup in the 1991 to 1992 season and some other domestic trophies. But in my opinion, his greatest achievement was winning the Champions League with Ajax against Milan, as I mentioned in the 1995 season. What's astonishing about this story is that Ajax went unbeaten throughout the tournament and managed to secure a historic 5-2 victory over Bayern Munich in the semi-finals. At that time, clubs in the Italian league began racing to sign the Dutch player Edgar Davids, and in the end, he indeed moved to the paradise of football, AC Milan. But unfortunately, that move was one to forget due to an injury that hindered his career. However, there was a coach named Marcello Lippi, the manager of Juventus, who strongly believed in David's abilities and felt that he had the potential to achieve great success. Here, Juventus quickly intervened and managed to snatch the player for €8 million. Under the leadership of the experienced Marcello Lippi, Davids formed a perfect duo with Zinedine Zidane and firmly established himself as one of the best midfielders in the world. And we cannot overlook David's achievements with Juventus, as he won 3 Serie A titles with them, in addition to an Italian Super Cup title. At a time when video game covers and advertisements were mostly limited to attackers, Edgar Davids was one of the few defensively inclined players chosen to appear on the cover of the game, FIFA. Davids was a global talking point for a long time, not only because of his strange glasses, but also because he had enough energy to play 3 matches in a single day. But if we're talking about energy and unlimited effort, is there a player who embodies that more than the one in 8th place? It's N'Golo Kante. Did you expect me to talk about the best defensive midfielders in history without including this Frenchman in the list? The humble player with the wonderful smile, who earned the respect and love of all football fans around the world. It's impossible to find someone who hates him. This kind young man, from the beginning of his struggle story until reaching the top, is loved by everyone. He is the player you wish to see in your team, even for just 1 season. He began his journey from the lower divisions in France, reaching Leicester City, where he achieved the greatest miracle in the history of the Premier League by winning the historic title with the Foxes in 2016. You feel like you're watching a Bengal tiger hunting its prey when Kante is on the pitch. But after his achievements with Leicester City, he decided to move to Chelsea, where he once again conquered the Premier League and won the Player of the Season award. His journey reached its peak when he lifted the World Cup with the French national team in 2018, after delivering consistent and outstanding performances throughout the tournament. He truly earned the fans' admiration and the thunderous chants that echoed across France during the victory celebrations. And his time at Chelsea wasn't just about winning the Premier League. In the 2020 to 2021 season, Kante helped the Blues lift their 2nd Champions League trophy. He had already proven himself as one of the best midfielders in England for many years. Now, several clubs are reportedly interested in bringing him back to Europe, most recently West Ham from the Premier League. But the question remains, will Kante actually leave the Saudi League? Honestly, I doubt it. He seems very comfortable and settled there. In 7th place, we have a calm and ideal player in the world of football. It's the Spanish Xabi Alonso. He was not just a model professional on the pitch, but he also won the Bundesliga title as a coach without suffering a single defeat. In my opinion, he's one of the most underrated players on this list. Alonso began his career with Real Sociedad and found success in every stop of his football journey. After shining with Liverpool, he won one of the strangest Champions League titles with them. But after that achievement, he decided to move to Real Madrid, and that was only to face a challenge that seemed impossible at the time, stopping Pep Guardiola's team, which some consider one of the best clubs in football history. But he succeeded with his teammates in achieving the 10th and bringing the European title back to Real Madrid after a 12-year absence. Even at Bayern Munich, and although he played there for only 3 seasons at the end of his career, he was considered one of the club's legends. As for the national team, he was crowned with 2 Euro titles, in addition to winning the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. But beyond the trophies, what distinguishes Alonso's career is the consistency of his performance from day one until his retirement. He never experienced any noticeable decline. Does anyone remember a bad season for him? Or a period when his level level dropped so much that the coach left him out of the starting lineup. He was such a complete player to the extent that Roberto Mancini gave him a remarkable description. Barcelona players pass the ball at least 25 times to reach the goal, while Real Madrid's Xabi Alonso does all of that with just one pass. I know that many Barcelona fans will say that Roberto Mancini's statement is exaggerated, but let's be honest, Alonso's passes, especially the long ones, were so perfect that they made you feel as if, before joining Real Madrid, he had studied a science specialized in passing, or they made you feel as if he was controlling the match like he was playing on a PlayStation, with his precise and masterful passes on the pitch. But what's stranger than Alonso's passes is the ability of the sixth-place player in this list to play in several positions, and that his presence in the era before the internet and social media made him largely underrated. Of course, I'm talking about the Dutch beast, Frank Rijkaard. Some may consider him the best midfielder in history, as he won 5 Eredivisie titles with Ajax, 3 Dutch Cup titles, and 2 Dutch Super Cup titles. As for Milan, he was part of the famous trio that included Van Basten, Gullit, and Rijkaard, the trio that made history in the Rossoneri shirt. Rijkaard achieved 2 Champions League titles with Milan, in addition to 2 Serie A titles and 2 UEFA Super Cup titles. He was also among the trio nominated for the Ballon d'Or in 1988 and 1989. And even at the end of his career, he returned to Ajax to lead the youth generation under the supervision of coach Louis van Gaal, and managed to achieve the Champions League title for the 3rd time in his career, at the expense of his former team Milan. But let's put this player aside for a moment. Have you ever seen the Netherlands win a title? Honestly, until now, I haven't seen that. But Rijkaard didn't just witness it. He was the reason behind achieving the only title in the history of the Netherlands, which is Euro 1988. He played a big role in the Dutch national team's triumph in the tournament, which made him deserve his place in the team of the tournament. And now we arrive at the top 5, where the debates begin and opinions start to differ. In 5th place, I've put a relatively recent player, a name that was never mentioned in the old lists. It's the Spanish Rodri. I know you're surprised, my friend, to see him in 5th place, but before you rush to judge, let me explain a little. First, let's agree that Rodri has been the best defensive midfielder in the world over the past 5 years, without a rival and without a doubt. But what's truly surprising is that this player continues to deliver the same outstanding level with Manchester City and the Spanish national team in every season and every tournament, without any decline. And I challenge you to mention a single match in which Rodri performed badly. This is the reason why Pep Guardiola described him as the only player who has never put in a poor performance, no matter his mental or physical condition. Secondly, Rodri is the player who always shows up in big matches and major tournaments. The biggest proof of that is the Champions League title that Manchester City won against Inter Milan, where Rodri scored the winning goal and was also the best player of the match, in addition to winning the award for the best player of the tournament. And even at the level of the Spanish national team, and despite the absence of big names like Xavi, Iniesta, and the historic 2010 generation, the Spanish national team, with Rodri, delivers an exceptional performance, not just excellent. The proof of that is winning Euro 2024, where Rodri won the award for the best player of the tournament. He later also won the Ballon d'Or as the best player in the world, and I expect that if he continues at this legendary level in the coming years, he will occupy the 1st place in the list in the future. But do you know who is the player that shined for years with his club and his national team? A player who was underrated despite being a complete midfielder with physical strength, high-level skills, and great ball control. He is the man who changed the equation of midfield in the Premier League, the French Patrick Vieira, who is in 4th place on this list. The French giant of Senegalese origin, who played for clubs like Milan, Inter, Juventus, and Manchester City, but without a doubt, he spent the best years of his career with Arsenal under the leadership of the French coach Arsène Wenger, and Patrick Vieira was the main engine of Arsenal throughout the 9 years he spent with them. And he succeeded with Arsène Wenger's squad in winning the Premier League 3 times, including the historic achievement of winning the Golden Premier League without a single defeat in the 2003 to 2004 season, an achievement that has not been repeated until now. And during his glory years with the French national team, he managed to win the 1998 World Cup for the first time in the history of the French national team, along with the Euro 2000 title and the Confederations Cup in 2001. His success was not limited to England, as he was also crowned in Italy with 5 Serie A titles, 4 with Inter Milan and 1 with Milan, in addition to the Champions League with Inter. And although some consider Vieira the best defensive midfielder in history, I placed him in this position based on my personal view. But one of his most notable achievements is that he changed the concept of the defensive midfielder in the Premier League and proved that a player in this position can be both strong defensively and skillful at the same time, at a time when the role of the defensive midfielder in England was limited only to intercepting and clearing balls. But if we are going to talk about a defensive midfielder who shined specifically in the defensive roles, then we must mention the one in third place. He is the minesweeper, as they say in the world of football, the French Claude Makelele. In the late 90s and the beginning of the 2000s, the name Claude Makelele emerged as an invaluable player in the midfield. Because of this player, the defensive midfielder became required to perform what became known as the Makelele role. He was the ideal player for any coach during that era. Due to his excellence, he changed the concepts of the defensive midfielder to the extent that he was the only defensive barrier during his time at Real Madrid, in the presence of players who had no defensive tendencies like Raúl, Zidane, and Figo. Makelele was the one doing all the hard work, giving those stars the freedom and creativity on the field. He was also one of the stars of the 2002 Champions League, the tournament that Real Madrid won thanks to Zidane's famous goal, in addition to winning 2 La Liga titles, the UEFA Super Cup, and 2 Spanish Super Cups. All of that in just 3 years with the Royal Club. If you want to know how important Makelele was, imagine that his departure from Real Madrid was the main reason behind the major crisis between coach Del Bosque and club president Florentino Perez, which was considered one of the biggest mistakes in Perez's history, to the extent that Zidane himself spoke with Perez and asked him to reverse his decision, but Perez was stubborn and insisted on his departure, turning it into an inevitable reality. And after Makelele left, the team's performance collapsed significantly, and the dream of the Galacticos ended in a tragic way. After his departure from Real Madrid, Makelele moved to Chelsea and sparked a revolution under the leadership of Mourinho, where he won the Premier League title for 2 consecutive years, 2005 and 2006. He also reached the Champions League final in 2008, but the penalty shootout gave the title to Manchester United. And until this day, despite the evolution of football styles and the differences in playing methods, the name of Makelele is still present whenever anyone is asked about the top 5 defensive midfielders in the history of the game. As for the one in second place on today's list, he is the Ballon d'Or winner of 1990 and one of the greatest German players in history, if not the greatest of them all. The new generation might not have heard his name much, but he is a player who achieved success throughout a career that lasted more than 22 years. It is enough to say that he won the European Championship title with the German national team in 1980, then reached the World Cup final twice in 1982 and 1986, until the most prominent moment of his career came when he led Germany to win the 1990 World Cup at the expense of Maradona and the Argentina national team. Of course, I am talking about the German legend Lothar Matthaus, the player whose most prominent career highlights were with Bayern Munich and Inter Milan. With the Bavarian giant, Lothar Matthaus won the Bundesliga 7 times, in addition to 3 German Cup titles, 1 Super Cup title, and also won the German League Cup 3 times. As for Italy, he won the Serie A title once and the Italian Super Cup once again. He also won the FIFA World Player of the Year award, which also earned him the Ballon d'Or, as I mentioned earlier. But the greatest thing in Lothar Matthaus's career wasn't just the titles, but the incredible continuity. He maintained his high level for 22 years and was a key player throughout his time on the field, without his level dropping even for a single moment. He was truly a German machine that never stopped, and until recently, he was considered the best defensive midfielder in the history of football, until the first-place player appeared, the one who turned the balance of the game them upside down. It's the Spanish Sergio Busquets. The player who is called the pivot of the earth in the world of football might seem at first glance like a skinny player, almost like a stick. He doesn't have a strong build that qualifies him for physical duels, and he doesn't appear capable of keeping up with the physical strength in football. In fact, he doesn't even seem suitable to play as a defensive midfielder at all. All the players we mentioned from the 10th place to the 2nd were blessed with great physical and muscular strength, but Busquets was never part of this category at all, and yet, in a magical way, he managed to make everyone look at him as a genius from his very first appearance. This player, alongside Pep Guardiola, succeeded in creating a true revolution in the roles of the defensive midfielder, and this revolution continues to this day. He possessed exceptional control of the ball, a comprehensive vision of all areas of the pitch, and most importantly, the ability to retain the ball no matter how many opposing players surrounded him. If Busquets was surrounded by 3 or 4 players, you could be absolutely sure that he would be able to get out of that pressure with complete ease. He is the true embodiment of the idea that football is not played with physical strength and feet only, but is played with the mind first and foremost. As soon as I mention the name Busquets, you automatically picture him spinning with the ball between 3 players, smoothly and calmly getting past them as if he's playing with little kids in the street. What this player used to do seemed illogical, to the point that in his first season with Barcelona, he forced a giant player like Yaya Toure to leave because the defensive midfield position became unquestionably reserved in his name. And surely, Busquets will remain among the few holding midfielders who changed the concepts of football and created a new style in this position. We can say that the role of the holding midfielder was one thing before Busquets and became something completely different after his appearance. And the greatest proof of that is the description of the legend Riquelme of Busquets, when he said that his emergence changed football forever, and it is impossible to find a player like him, and I completely agree with him. For after Busquets and Guardiola's philosophy, the defensive midfielder was no longer required only to intercept balls, but became a manager of the possession process, recovering the ball, bypassing pressure, and initiating attacks. Simply, without Busquets, we would not have witnessed this new style. In the end, the audience may disagree on the ranking of the best defensive midfielders in history, but what cannot be denied is the deep impact each one of them left in his position. This position has always been the beating heart of the team. Share with us in the comments, who is the best defensive midfielder in your opinion? And don't forget to subscribe for more of these videos.